Okay, I feel like I have put this video off for the longest time, but today I'm going to share going right back to the beginning, to where we are now. I've had to write notes for this video, not just any notes, highlighted notes. I feel like it's kind of hard because obviously it's kind of like compressing so much, and I don't know about you, but any fitness journey is just never ever streamlined. There's so many ups and downs, there's so many stopping, starting. Trying to compress that into a video and thinking of how to do that is kind of difficult. So I just want to talk to you about the highs, the lows, and where it all began. So some background to start with. As a child, like since I can remember, I've always had a really big appetite. Literally dating back to my baby pictures, I'm there with like 2 ice creams in my hand. I always seem to have food or like something sweet, chocolate, ice cream, you name it. It was all over my face, always in my hands, and that's kind of like a joke in the family. And I actually think that comes back to my dad, because he used to give us all the same portion sizes. Like me, my dad, my brother would always have the same size portions. So whenever I'd go to like friends' houses, I remember coming home sometimes and being like, oh my goodness, I was starving after dinner last night, Dad. Like, they don't really eat that much. Having an appetite has always been something I'm aware of, and I've always been able to put away like a lot of foods. Like any of my friends and family can vouch for me on this one. Even now, I'm very capable of putting a lot of food away. Growing up, I was quite active. Like I was sporty in school, but not sort of someone to do hella extracurricular like activities. Like I did netball for a while, but it wasn't something I did every single week. As a kid, I had these huge like little chipmunk cheeks, and I had like a lot of baby fat. I was just quite like a chubby kid. I wasn't really bothered. I was quite confident, happy. When I turned about 12, I got really into horse riding. I went horse riding one time, fell absolutely in love with that. And that was like the first proper hobby that I was absolutely obsessed with. I would spend all my time at the stables, like looking after the horses, going like to and from the field. So I was very active at that point. I started competing, doing like horse riding competitions, show jumping. So around age 12 to 13, I had changed school and everything, and I feel like that's when things really started to change in terms of like I became a bit more conscious about like my body. I was a bit more aware, and I noticed that everyone around me kind of like hit puberty, and I was like, hang on a sec, where's my period at? I hadn't started my period and I was quite late. I feel like I was still this like chubby little like girl. I still looked really young at this point, and all my friends had like transformed, and here I was like, oh my god, hello puberty, are you coming or what? And then boom, in weeks my period started, and I literally just like puberty just transformed my whole face, my whole body. My chubby cheeks just like disappeared overnight basically. Quite lanky, I suddenly went quite like slim and skinny, and at this point I was still very active. So I think it was a bit of a mixture of like puberty and also just being really active and not really thinking about food, because I was always outside with my friends. I don't think I was eating enough, and probably just under eating as well, like unconsciously. And I remember constantly being told, oh my god, you look like a completely different person, which is quite weird to hear because obviously you don't see it yourself. But I was left, right, centre, like family, friends at school, or people like, oh my god, Olivia, you used to have those big chubby cheeks, like what happened? Age like 15, 16, I actually moved out of home and went through like a bit of trauma, I'd say. Like I didn't speak to my family for over 9 months, which at that age was like quite intense. Going through just a bit of like a rebellious phase, I'd say. But I think we all go through that, you know, at some point when you're younger. And moved in with like this boyfriend I had at the time, really weird. He was a lot older, it was just bizarre. I was definitely less active, and this is when I definitely put on quite a lot of weight, which I didn't really see happening, if that makes sense. But I was working like a lot of hours at this pub, which were quite late, so I wasn't sleeping very well. I had no knowledge about foods or like nutrition at this point. Probably my most chunky, so that takes me like through sixth form. I was eating a lot. I was just getting like packs of cookies every day, like a 4-pack, you know, and big round ones, like when I was in sixth form on my lunch break or whatever, along with all my meals and stuff. And I just kind of like hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, oh god, like I've really put on weight. And it was the first time in my life that I felt quite chunky. Around 17, I got a gym membership and started going for the first time like properly. Or when I say properly, I thought I was going properly. Like I didn't really know what I was doing. I had no like plan or structure. Train lower body, like my glutes, and just do squats every single time I went to the gym. Didn't really increase my weight. I'd go on like the Stairmaster, do bits and bobs, but I saw some changes and like maybe a little bit of weight loss, but didn't really back it up with my nutrition. Like at that point I still had the mentality that like, oh, if I've been to the gym, that I can go and get 20 chicken nuggets from McDonald's and I'm still going to either like lose weight or chicken nuggets are going to go straight to my glutes. At 18 I went to uni to study business management in London, and I got my first little studio flat with like a little cooking area and stuff like that. Probably not the best decision to move like to a studio flat completely on my own, but I'm glad I did it now, if that makes sense. But at the time I didn't really know what would come with all of that. At first I was really excited. I was like, oh, I'm going to be able to cook my own meals, I'm going to get in really good shape, I'm not going to like order takeaways and stuff like that. I got my first like cooking book and tried cooking like healthier meals, but I just didn't really understand like about calories. So in terms of like meals and stuff, I remember making like my first few meals in the week that I moved there, and I had like 3 large avocados with it, and I was just spooning it out like a cream egg of an avocado, thinking that that was really healthy, but they're really good for you, but they're very calorie dense. So I think I was eating like big portions, and I would make like, you know, them enchilada kits you can get that like serve I think like 4 to 5 people. And obviously because I was living on my own and this was the first few weeks, I didn't know any people, I was just eating the whole serving size. And that's something I've always had from being younger. Like if I've ever had stuff in, like whether it was a cake, it's never there for long, it's always fully eaten. That was a bit of a struggle that I never really knew about until I lived on my own. I wouldn't have any like self-discipline to just like have a small portion. I'd just eat the whole lot. In terms of fitness at that point, I did have like a gym in like the complex where I lived and stuff. It was pretty minimal, and it was pretty much the same. Like I used to do like some lower body exercises, mainly all like glute focused, and I'd just run on the treadmill, just no sort of structure. Then the party lifestyle commenced, and I was just drinking all the time, getting lots of takeaways like after nights out, just living off like fish fingers, chicken dippers, all of that. The weight just piled on pretty quickly, which I think is quite normal for a lot of people when you first go to uni, because it's such a big like drastic lifestyle change, mentally, physically, every kind of way. Then after that whole stint where I'd put on quite a lot of like noticeable weight and I was just feeling really lethargic, I had the worst like cystic acne, which really got me down, and I didn't want to leave like my room for so long. I had like, oh, it was awful. And I think it was just a mixture of like bad diet. My diet basically consisted of like a lot of carbs. I didn't have any like proteins or fats in there. I got myself quite down and really low. And 18, 19 was when I just sort of knew something had to change. I walked past a new gym that was opening on the same road as me, and it looked so good. It had loads of equipment, and I thought, right, this is it. I really want to join this new gym. That was when I started really looking into fitness and like what style of fitness I wanted to do. Tried a lot of like HIIT stuff before. I'd done some like weighted stuff, but mainly just like for lower body. I hadn't even thought about doing like shoulders, back, or like training anything else. And I kind of wanted this impossible figure at the time, which was to lose a load of weight but also to grow a bum, which is very much like two contrasting things. And I think that's probably what slowed my progress down for a long time. I was yo-yoing between the two. Learned a lot just by going on YouTube, watching how to do the moves and sort of like learning that way. And then I was doing some cardio on top of that, so I was doing a lot of like full body stuff, still like a massive glute focus. I remember seeing a little bit of progress and I was absolutely hooked from there. Like the way that exercise made me feel for the first few times, like I still remember that now. Like mentally, it completely just changed everything really. It did get a bit excessive, so once I'd seen that first little bit of progress, I was like, oh my god, I want more. Like I wanted to lose more weight. So that was when I became quite obsessed with losing weight. I was down that gym like 2 times a day, and I really started like excessive exercising. I lost a lot of weight, and like my family noticed it and they were like, oh my god, what have you done? I was like, oh, I've just been going to the gym. So when I really lost the weight, and so many people were telling me like, oh, you look amazing, you look so much healthier, blah blah blah, and I was feeling a lot happier. That was when I became really worried about putting the weight back on, and I didn't want to go back to that because I didn't really actually know how I'd lost the weight or like what really worked for me. When it did probably just come down to like I wasn't eating as much and I was doing a lot of ridiculous exercise. That was when I became very obsessive with food. So I turned to kind of like restricting myself, which was so ridiculous. I would make these like ridiculous rules up about chocolate. I wouldn't be allowed like carbs for a few days, and then I'd end up having like a big blowout, or like I'd get a friend to come over, we'd get a takeaway. I'd end up eating like a whole large pizza to myself and like 4 cookies all at once, and then a bottle of wine or something, and then I would feel rubbish about doing that. Just felt a bit not happy with like how things going. I felt like I'd lost like my bum altogether, and I felt like that was quite flat. I was still doing these like low body workouts, and couldn't understand why I didn't have this huge bum. And it was just like a lack of knowledge looking back, and a lack of awareness. It did get quite bad because I then decided to do a season in Marbella in Spain with one of my best friends, just like a party season basically. And before we were going there, I was like, oh, I'm going to be bikini all the time, so I wanted to lose more weight and have like a flat stomach. I wasn't eating much. I remember days like I would just have like a pack of like Ryvita biscuits or something like that, and then like a load of diet drinks. That went on for a good few months. I did the season in Spain where I was just like drinking all the time. That was the first time, obviously, since I started like going to the gym, where I didn't go to the gym at all. And so I was very worried that I was going to put on a lot of weight. So I think that's why I didn't eat so much whilst I was over there. It takes me up to coming back from Marbella, going into my second year of uni, and I was about to move back down to London when things kind of changed. I didn't want to go back down there, and I remember feeling like, oh, I can't go on like this, and I had a real mindset shift, and I'm so thankful that happened, because that can be quite a difficult place to sort of get out from. But I knew I wasn't happy in my body. I wasn't happy being skinny. I just wanted to get into a better place with eating, because obviously when I was a kid and stuff, I never used to think about food. So that was where it all began. And around 19, I met Mason, and he's been a professional rugby player. He's qualified PT, very knowledgeable. He studied biochemistry. So in the first few weeks when we met him, we went to the gym together, and I looked at what he ate, and I really sort of like had a massive influence on my mindset. And I spoke to him a lot about food, and it really showed me how I just had a lack of understanding. I never really looked into the biology of like muscle gaining, weight loss, you know, calorie deficit. So that's where all of that kind of started. I was really looking into more of the like biology side, and I found it really interesting as well. And that's when I was looking for a really good like PT course to do, that kind of thing. So that's where my knowledge really took into place, which was the best thing I ever did. You just spend so long like dipping in and out, trying so many different techniques, listening to so many people's opinions, when it just comes down to realizing you do kind of need to try stuff, but do what works for you, because it's not a one size fits all. But initially Mason set me a gym plan, and also like we looked at my diet and we realized I was just living off carbohydrates basically. Still have a lot of carbohydrates now, but I've got a lot more like proteins and fats, and it's so much more balanced. So this was when I did my first ever bulk, because I wanted to grow my lower body and increase my strength with like my lifts and stuff. And I was constantly feeling lethargic like before all this. Mason helped me form like my first sort of like bulking plan. I set my calories for the first time, which I hadn't really done before, but because I'd come from like feeling like I was quite restricted before, I didn't want to like go back into that mentality, but obviously like in a different frame of mind, if that makes sense. So I would probably say I ate a lot more, but I was more intuitively eating, and like kind of like more like a flexible diet, I would say. And I did gain quite a lot, and I was quite comfortable with that. So it was very invigorating, or like I felt a lot healthier within myself. My skin got better. So it was a big transition, and I'm just so glad that like my mindset really changed, because I think you've got to want to change from within. So that worked out basically a full year of bulking and putting on size, muscle mass, which I'm really happy with like how that went. Training split back then was following like a weightlifting program. Back then was training legs like 3 times a week, which was pretty intense, and then 2 upper body days, which was quite a new thing. Like I hadn't really trained like specifically upper body before, but I'm so glad I did that, because that's helped so much with like creating a physique. Obviously there were so many ups and downs, like whilst I was doing that, it was quite tricky when I was bulking and seeing that I was gaining. I didn't really look at the scales too much. I've never really been obsessive with scales, to be honest. Bringing that to 2019, where I was probably the biggest I've ever been, but I felt like I'd put on some good muscle, and I felt really good from within, which I think is the most important thing. Like, my mindset is the biggest transformation out of all of this, I would say. 2019, I did travel quite a lot, so I was training where I could when I can. I did try and cut in 2019, but I don't think I was very consistent with it, and I was calorie counting, but I didn't do my proteins, carbs and fats, and I didn't really experiment with them to see what worked for me. So I still probably had like a lot of carbs and not the most balanced meals. Like meal plans, didn't really get on with those. I tried like a few different ways of eating, and it just, I haven't really found my thing yet, which is absolutely fine. Which brings me on to this year and where we are now, where I've had the most progression. I'll put some pictures on the screen, and that has really come down to like a few different factors. One, I will always say, like, just being consistent and having a goal in mind, making sure that goal's for you, not swapping and changing every 2 minutes. I would say this year is where I've really seen the most results, which has been a result of obviously the bulk that I did, where I gained some good muscle mass, but also doing what works for me. Like, so Mason obviously had a massive influence when I first started out, and I took a lot of what he's found like works for him into my own like nutrition and workouts, which is great. But some of those things don't actually suit me, because we're all so different. We all have different ways. There's not a one size, one lifestyle, because at the end of the day, I feel like with fitness, it's not a diet or a workout that's gonna change or get you results. It's literally a lifestyle that you find enjoyable, that you can actually sustain. So this year I just focused on like a few things. For example, I love having chocolate every day. You can always incorporate the things you enjoy the most into your nutrition and diet. You should never exclude like one solid food group. It's not one solid food group that's the enemy, it's your whole mindset towards all of that. And not having a restrictive diet. This has probably been the first year that I've been able to have like whatever I want in my cupboards. Before, I used to struggle to have chocolate bars in because I'd be wanting to eat the whole thing at once. So yeah, again, it's a lot of like mind work, just creating a lifestyle that you really enjoy, making sure your workouts are like what you enjoy. There's so many different ways. There's boxing, there's HIIT workouts, there's like plyo. It doesn't have to be just weightlifting, but find what you actually enjoy, what your body responds to. So something quite new that's been a massive game changer is realizing that I wasn't living the most active lifestyle during the day, because I'm mainly sat on my laptop working away, and then I'll get one, you know, like my workout in. I work out like 5 times a week, and I was thinking, why am I not seeing much progression? And it was mainly just from not really moving during the day so much. So increasing my daily step count has really helped me, like in every way, and mentally as well. It doesn't have to be like just getting outside on a walk. You can clean your house, or like do your gardening, or take your dog out on a walk. There's loads of ways to increase like your activity level, because I think a lot of people make that mistake. It's like they'll go off someone else's calories or someone else's calorie deficit and think that that's going to make them lose weight, when in reality we all have very different activity levels. So since combining my, obviously like my workout split with my nutrition, so I calculated obviously like my macros and stuff, like proteins, carbs, fats, made sure all my meals had those 3 in, and just had more like balanced foods. I wasn't feeling as hungry all the time. I got a lot better results. Like, I have really found that having a higher protein diet really suits my body. So they're the things that have really helped me in so many ways. By no means am I saying like if you're someone who's not got the healthiest or best relationship with food at the moment to go and start tracking your calories, macros, whatever. So that's my approach to it all. There's so much to it. I feel like I hope I haven't missed anything that was like a big point, but it's a tricky video to do. But let me know if you would like to see any more like sit down videos like this, if there is anything else you would like to know. But yeah, I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope it was helpful. I mentioned everything, so I think I have mentioned everything I wanted to. I hope I haven't forgotten anything, because there's so much to cover in this kind of video. Do let me know if you'd like to know anything else about like my fitness journey, or anything that would be helpful for you right now. I'd be really happy to do so. I'd love you to stick around and join the fam, subscribe, and if you haven't already, don't forget to like this video, and I'll see you in the next